Okay, so this is my BMW 800 and the head bearings have gone and I need to replace them. Thank you BMW for putting inferior quality bearings in my bike, but never mind. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is take the handlebars off the clamps, tie them back, take the top yoke off, take the mudguard off, take the wheel off and slide the forks out. The first thing I've done is to pack up the bottom of the bike to stop it falling forward once I take the front wheel off. So that's the first thing I've done, and then the next job will be to take the plastic off and, like I say, and then the handlebars. I'm going to remove the ignition barrel, and what I've used, because I haven't got the right tool to take these bolts out, what I've used is a pair of these, and they're not too tight, so if you get a good grip on the sides you can get it out. I've removed the plastic, I've taken the handlebars off the clamps, I've tied the handlebars back out the way. The next job is to take the wheel off. So the calipers now have been taken off. Unfortunately I've managed to shear off one of the bolts. It's corroded in, so I'll have to sort that out afterwards, drill it out and tap it. I've tied the calipers away from the forks, and the next job is to release the pinch bolts and release the axle bolt and pull it out and free the wheel. There you go, and the wheel is now out of the bike. And the next thing is to just unscrew the brake hose line just here on the back of the fork. Right, so I've released the two pinch bolts here, the two pinch bolts here, this pinch bolt here, and I've started to undo this this bolt here, and what happens is it's actually connected to the shaft that is connected to the bottom yoke, which is obviously connected to the forks. So as you do it, just make sure that you've got somebody with you, or you've got your fork legs sat on something so they don't actually fall through. So as you can see, mine have gone through. And if we look under here, you can see, I don't know whether you can see the bottom bearing race there. Right, one thing that I did forget to do is this brake line here is fastened to the bottom fork yoke. That needs disconnecting, and also this plate needs taking off, and possibly the horn. Once that's removed, then I should be able to pull the fork legs out, complete with the bottom yoke and the shaft with the bottom bearing on. Okay, so I've released the plate, the plastic plate that surrounds the horn. It's just two screws here. Released that. Released this little bracket here that holds the brake line, and effectively once this was unplugged, which is the lead to the horn, the forks have just dropped out. So there we go, the forks are now out of the bike. Okay, so this is the dust cover that was underneath the top yoke. It's there to stop most of the crap from getting into the bearing. So take that off, keep it safe, and that's the bearing. Inside you've got the outer bearing, and at the bottom another outer bearing which is tapered, and I just need to knock those out, and then that's it. That's the old bearings out. Okay, to get the outer part of the bearing out, you need to get something with a bit of an edge, some kind of drift. I'm using this tyre lever, and you need to tap evenly on both sides to get the outer bearing out. And there it goes. So this is the outer bearing. Alright, keep hold of that because we can use that to tap in the new ones. Okay, so both outer bearings are out. I must admit, I was expecting it to be more difficult than it was. Just remember that when you're tapping them out, make sure you tap evenly on both sides so they come out even. I knew this was going to be difficult to get this bearing off, and it was a combination of using a cut down Allen key to just underneath. There's a couple of holes and you can slide an Allen key in. It was a combination of using a wood chisel to just try and get down the meeting face, between the meeting face and the bearing, and then when the gap was big enough I used a cold chisel just to force the bearing a bit more, and now it's actually, as you can see, it's actually now worked its way off. So a few more taps and I reckon that'll be off. There we go. So it's off the shaft there. I've just got to tap it off the other end, and that's it. The bearings are off. Okay, so I've fitted the top outer race, and I've had it in the freezer for a few hours, and I've gently heated the frame with the heat from a blowtorch. So I've not actually put the flame on the frame, I've just used the heat from the blowtorch to gently heat the frame, and when I came to put the outer race in, effectively it just dropped straight in. So I was very pleased with that, and you need to actually make sure it's completely seated, so it actually sits slightly lower than the edge of the frame here. So what I did was I used the old race, turned it upside down, and then hit the old race onto the new one, and that actually made it seat really nicely. So I've put the bearing in the oven just to heat it up a bit, which will allow it to expand a little bit, and hopefully we'll be able to get it on the shaft a little bit easier. Don't forget to use the dust cap, which I nearly did. Okay, now this is really hot, so I've got my gloves on. Okay, so it went on really easy, the first bit. Okay, so it just needs a little bit of a tap. Okay, just remember to hit it on the inside of the race, not on the outside. Otherwise you could damage the race. Okay, well I reckon that's it. It looks like it's all the way down, and it's just a case of rebuilding the bike. Right, so I now need to put some grease on the bearing. Just make sure you put plenty on and work it into the bearing all the way around. Okay, so I've greased the bearing, I've done the bottom one, I've done the top one, and now we're going to reassemble the forks. Okay, so the forks have now, I've now slid the forks up, and they're in position. All I need to do now is to put the dust cap on and pull the yokes back over the fork tops and screw it down. Okay, so the bike's pretty much done. Last couple of jobs that I need to do is to make sure that the steering head bearings are under the correct amount of load, and the way I do that is to use this Allen key and to tighten it up until the steering starts to feel tight, at which point I'm just going to back it off a little bit, and then that's pretty much it. That's about the correct amount of load that you need on the bearings. Okay, so I finished the bike. I've just got to make sure that the bolts are torqued up to the right settings. I will check after probably a couple of 100 miles, check the head bearing again to see if there's any play in it. If there is, then I'll take that up. And that's it, it's finished.